There are hundreds of thousands of videos, tutorial guides, and so on that can teach you skills like copywriting, sales, how to speak, or whatever you want to learn. But there is a problem with those videos. They only work if you already know that one of those skills is your constraint. There is one skill that is necessary for business that no one can teach you because it is extremely based on your unique situation, but it's the most important skill of them all. And it's something that most people learn from experience, but in this video I will try to show you how to build a system of thinking that can help you to develop this skill even further. This skill I'm talking about is the ability to figure out what your problem is. Not personally, or what your constraint is. At any given time, there is a constraint happening in whatever you're doing. It can be life, it can be business. I'm gonna talk strictly about business into this video, but it works for everything. At any given time, there is a constraint happening, otherwise you will grow infinitely. Okay, and there are some periods where there are less constraints, or periods where you just solve that constraint, so you're waiting for the next one. But at most times, even while growing, there is a constraint. It is either happening right now or it's developing. And your ability to figure out what that constraint is as fast as possible is where your power, your unique power as a person comes from, because that's what you can control. And if you think about it this way, when your business is growing, most businesses grow like this: do. They grow, like they usually start at zero for a long time, then they have a spike, can be either big or small, and then they stay stagnant for a while, then another spike, and they repeat the process like this. That's most businesses. Your ability to make your growth not stop every single time is the thing that dictates how fast your business grows and how much you reduce the probability of your business doing stuff like this. Because what happens is, when you're stagnant in your business, when nothing is happening, that doesn't mean that your business is stable. That means that your business is going to fail. There is no such thing as staying the same. You're either growing or your business is slowly decaying in some way or another. Okay? So unless it's a strategic move to stay at the same amount of income and you already have a way, and you're trying to unless it's a strategic thing that you're trying to do. In that case, if it's planned, you likely have a way to avoid your business going down. But I know a lot of people whose business gets basically the same for a while, and they think it's fine. They think it's like, it's just, I'm gonna grow, I'm gonna work more on it eventually. For now, this amount of money is good enough. It pays my bills and so on. Which is fine if that's your only goal, but if your goal is to grow your business and to grow it on the long term, you can't wait on the moments where your business is the same. As soon as you see that for 1 month or less there is no growth happening, you need to instantly take action on it and start to think about why. What is happening? So the way I like to simplify this for me is I divide every business I work with into set stages, which start from client acquisition. They go all the way down. So they start from leads. So how to get the leads, like acquisition of ads, Instagram, YouTube, like the more general stuff, like super top of the funnel. People barely know you, but they watch one video. All the way to closing a lead. So every step in between, it can be obviously depends on the business. But for example, it can be YouTube to a funnel that does a lead magnet, to like a school community, or just the lead magnet itself, DMs into sales call, into closing. Okay, you structure your own thing for your business. Okay, and you try to track as much of this data as possible. Then in the middle you have the closing, and then you have everything that happens after. Again, still depends on the business. For most businesses is obviously delivering, that's the minimum. Then if you have a good delivery, it's reviews. So you get a positive review, a testimonial, whatever it is, and then it's either referral or upsell or both, depending on the business you're running. What this does for you is now you have a digital or physical version of your business, and it's actually something that you can visualize. It's not an concept like a business, like you have all of those things, but now you have it written down. You can actually see it. And for most people, it is way easier to think about something if they can actually see it, if they can visualize it. Okay, so now having this version, what you need to do is you need to track as much as those like data, as those parts as possible. The easiest ones to track are usually how many views are you getting per month on YouTube, or like how many views are you getting per video on average on YouTube. Same thing on Instagram. How many people are viewing your story? What's your conversion rate on your ads? What's your closing rate? What's your conversion rate on your funnel? What's your conversion rate on the funnel to book the call? What's your conversion rate on the funnel to close? What's how many people are you upselling? Based on your customers. How many people are leaving reviews? Stuff like that. Those are usually the easiest ones, but they're also the most important ones. Okay, if you can track all of those, which maybe you can't because it's a lot of work, and for most people it's not hard. Just like tracking is a pain in the ass. Most people don't want to track all of this. So I'm going to assume that you just track part of it. And if you only want to track part of this, what I want you to track is conversion rate on your ads if you're running or any of that stuff. If you're not running ads, then you need to track how many people are viewing your stories and how many people are going to your funnel. Okay, the reason for this is if you're tracking the ads, you can kind of predict how many people are going to go to your funnel, and you can also obviously see how effective your advertisement method is. If you're not running ads and you're doing mostly organic, then you need to track how many people are viewing your stories, how many people are viewing your videos, and then you need to see how many people are going to your funnel. That way you can see how many people from your videos are going to your funnel. Then this is for both, like whatever you're doing, you need to track how much is your funnel converting. I don't care if you're bringing them to sales calls. I don't care if you're actually asking them to buy. I don't care what you're selling. You need to track this. It's extremely important, okay? Now, if you just sell stuff and that's the end of your funnel, now this is closed, that's fine. If you're also doing sales calls, then you have obviously another step, which is how much are your sales calls converting? Like how much are you closing? That's easy to track. You just get on a call, you have a tracker, you just put the name of the dude, you just put the recording of the call if you have it, closed, non-closed, or book another meeting. Book a meeting from a meeting. So you have one of these three options, maybe more, maybe less, depending on what you do. And then with all of those people, you get 10 people, you close 20% closing rate, congratulations. You have 100 people, you closed 30% closing rate, congratulations. You just have the most basic tracker in the world that tells you how many people you closed and how many people you didn't close and what's the percentage. Really simple. You don't even need to find a tutorial. You just have an Excel sheet, you put name, recording of the call, a drop down with closed, no close, booked another meeting, or whatever, or I don't care what you want to put, just at least have obviously close, no close. Then on the side you put a basic Excel like calculation that just tells you what's the percentage. Like you put if I don't remember it's the actual command, but it's like if like close count, like it's like count equal count if I think close something like that. And you can search the tutorial, okay, on this. But what happens is now you know your closing rate. Really cool. Then this is less important in my opinion, but it's still pretty important. It's not necessary, but you should do it. Is how many people are giving you reviews. So you should track that. You just see how many customers you have, how many reviews you have. You're like, bam, I have 100 customers, I have 13 reviews. Well, that's 13%. So you should probably increase it. Then you have a better product. Then you have the upsells, which is really similar. You have 30 people buying my next product, but I have 300 customers. Could be better. Also, not necessarily, depending on what you're selling, depending on how expensive the next product is. So that's why you need to also kind of have your own critical thinking. This is the problem I was talking about at the start of the video. You can't actually find a video on how to figure out your problem. Okay, you're not gonna open a video and it's like your name and your last name that live at this address, that runs this business, that makes this amount of money, that is whatever. You need to do this. And that's how you solve your problem. That's the problem you have. That's how you solve it. Congratulations. That's it. You're gonna be a billionaire. Like you're not gonna find a video that gives you the exact solution and tells you the problem. So you need to have the skills to figure it out on your own. And this is what this data does. You can then look at it and be like, okay, I'm making the same money I was making last month. This something increase, this something decrease. Okay, no, that's the same. Okay, what can I increase? Okay, so let's say now you get double the leads, but you're closing, you're making only 20% more money. Well, then probably my conversion rate is the problem. You increase your conversion rate. Oh, now I'm making double the money I was making before. How do I do even more? Can I increase my conversion rate? You look at it and it's like, okay, I have a 10% closing rate. Well, that's a little bit under the industry average, depending on the industry, but in most industries you should close more than 10%. Can I increase it to 20? I probably can. Okay, you work, maybe it takes months, maybe it takes a week, depending on, how good you are at sales, I guess. Maybe, no matter how much it takes, how much time, you figure it out, you solve it, well, now you double your business. Then you go and you're like, okay, wait, but I'm converting 2% of my funnel, I should be converting 3%. Okay, let me fix it. Now you convert 3.5, for example, because, it went even better. You just, increase your business by 70%, how much money you're making. That's why you need this. It helps you figure out the problem, but also it gives you an actual perspective on how you can 2x, 3x your business. And this is what I use for my clients. This is what I do. I don't just magically, what people pay me for is basically figure out what problem they have and giving them the solution. I just don't magically, think about the problem, it appears in my mind and have the solution. I have frameworks, and this is one of those frameworks. You just have the business structure down, you have the percentage that are possibly constantly updated. Then, once you have these percentages, what do you work on? Well, I don't like this 2%, and I think it's stopping the business because we have 10,000 leads, but only 2% are being converted. Well, let's fix that. Okay, no matter what we do, it's not fixing. It's not being fixed. Maybe it's the quality of the leads. You improve the quality of the leads. Oh wow, now we have a 6% closing rate because the leads were so shit and now they're really good. We have less leads, maybe by 20%, but now we are closing 3 times, we are converting 3 times as much. It was worth it. It's this kind of thinking with trial and error that you're gonna repeat it. Maybe it's not as clear as you wish it to be at the start, but by repeating it and by constantly training it, there's going to be a day where you're gonna eventually be able to figure out the problem on your business on your own as fast as possible. And that's again where your power comes from. It comes from the fact that you can only control in your business the actions you do, and the actions you do are derive from what you are trying to solve, what you're trying to do in your business. Your action derive from what you think is the right thing. And the only way you can figure that out is if you have a good ability to figure out what's wrong. And this is the video. Okay, so now one last thing is, again, this is not something that you can learn in a week. It's not something you can learn in a month. It's not something you can learn in a year. Okay, I have barely learned this, and I've helped and worked with over 20 businesses in actually helping them run their business. Okay, so I solved a lot of problems, and I have fucked up a lot of times, and sometimes I'll make business make less money. Obviously, then I help them get back up and reach our goal. But sometimes I fail as well. Sometimes I do bullshit and I decrease the conversion rate because that wasn't the problem. You're going to fail. You're maybe gonna make even less money from doing this for a period. But the point is that if you solve the problem, if you work towards solving the problem, or you work towards figuring out the problem, one day you're gonna have the solution. And even at the cost of failing a little bit, of going a little bit behind, it's worth it, because the other option is you don't solve the problem, you're happy with the amount of money you're making, and then it's not a possibility of you failing. It's a certainty of you failing. You are going to make less money if you don't do anything to solve your business, your problems, your constraint, and you keep your business kind of running on its own. Of course, this doesn't mean that you don't work on it. This doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. You can work 12 hours a day and still make your business run on its own. You can spend hours a day delivering and doing secondary actions that are not directly solving your problem. and secondary actions such as anything that doesn't solve the direct constraint or a future known constraint. You know what I mean by that is a future known constraint is going to be not having leads. Any business at any point has that problem. If you stop generating leads, you're going to have less leads in the future, which means it's a problem. That's why doing content, running ads, doing outreach is a priority no matter what's the problem in your business. Because it's a future known constraint. In the future, if you don't do this action, you're going to have that problem. So it's justified to do it as a primary action, to advertise yourself, even if it's not the primary thing right now that's stopping you. Then you have the actual thing that's stopping you, which is the constraint right now. What's happening right now is the momentary constraint, which is you're not converting enough, you're not closing enough, your videos are not getting good enough leads, your ads are not converting, whatever it is. Okay, and you work towards solving it. Then you just repeat the process till the problem is solved. And once it's solved, you go to the next. You make more money right now, of course, if the problem is solved. Then there is the next one. You repeat it, and you constantly solve the constraint you have right now. And you need this because you don't need to necessarily solve the constraint on your own, but you need to know what the constraint is on your own, unless you're paying someone specifically for that, which is like, kind of what I do. But didn't want to advertise myself like that, but okay. But what happens? No, sorry, not what happens. But unless you have someone that helps you figure out the problem, you need to do it on your own. And when you have the problem, then you can go search tutorials or now to solve the problem. The thing about all of these tutorials on YouTube about certain skills or certain problems, they are really useful for people who already know what their problem is in their business, what the constraint is. If you don't know, the video are gonna be completely useless because you're going to be watching something that doesn't apply to you, even if you think it does, because maybe you're watching it because it's like, oh, how to sell more. You already have a 40% closing rate. You don't need to close more. Sorry, you already have a 40% closing rate. I know it's cool because they told you that sales is important, but you don't need to sell more. You need to select constraint that you have and go solve it. That's why you need to figure it out. So then you can go watch these videos with a purpose. It's cool to have those skills, but if you watch a video about a skill that you know is not gonna be useful in your business, either now or in the future, you are wasting time. You don't need to collect all of the shinies, you don't need to, like in Pokemon, you don't need to collect everything unless it's your specific purpose of having a lot of skills. But if it's not, then you don't need to learn how to do copywriting if it doesn't solve an actual constraint that is gonna either happen now or in the near future. You don't need to learn how to sell more, close more, if you have a 40% closing rate. You don't need to learn how to convert more if your funnel has a 5, 6, 10% closing rate, depending on what's good for your industry. You need to figure out the problem. Oh, my videos are getting 0 views. Solution. You need to figure out the problem. Oh, I'm closing 20% of, maybe I could close 30. Get the solution. You get the point. That's the video. That's what it is. Enjoy. Mwah. Have a good day. Grata da